Hello and welcome to the training session of Onfinity. In this session, we will explore the requisition to blanket purchase order process. Let's begin by reviewing our agenda. We will work through each stage of requisition to blanket purchase order process, understand its business relevance, and examine how Onfinity supports this workflow through structured process flow. Now, the objective of this session is to enable you to understand the requisition to blanket purchase order process and its associated terms in the context of business processes. Also enables you to test the requisition to blanket purchase order process in the context of business requirements. Next, we have the prerequisites. Before we proceed into the system, let's ensure that all necessary prerequisites are in place. You will need access to the Onfinity platform with a valid user ID and password. Onfinity Basic Setup and Master Data Setup configuration must be completed and available. So next is the requisition to blanket purchase order process use case. To illustrate the process, let's look at the practical use case. Sonic Ventures IT department anticipates ongoing needs for equipment and raises a purchase requisition for 6,000 units of each item, outlining estimated requirements for laptops, monitor, and accessories over the next 6 months. After requisition approval, the procurement team creates a blanket purchase order with the preferred vendor covering the overall scope, pricing, and term for a set period. Each month, 1,000 units are released through the individual purchase order under the BPO. Upon delivery, the goods are inspected and a goods receipt note GRN is generated to confirm the receipt. Finally, the finance team processes the AP invoice to ensure that the invoice is matched against the PO and GRN, validating quantity and price accuracy. Next, we have the requisition to blanket purchase order (BPO) process, which provides a high-level overview of the workflow. The process begins with the creation of a requisition, followed by the generation of a blanket purchase order as the need arises. Subsequent releases are issued under the BPO, leading to goods receipt note (GRN) generation, and finally, invoice processing. Let's know the basic master in the requisition to blanket purchase order (BPO) process. To record a requisition to blanket purchase order process, here are some basic masters which must be available in the system configured vendor, product or charge, attribute set instance, unit of measure, currency, price list, payment term, payment method, and warehouse. All of these topics are already covered in their respective training sessions. If you want to learn how to configure them, you can watch the detailed sessions on each topic. Now that we've covered the basic concepts and practical use case of the process, we have a clear understanding of the steps required to execute this business process effectively. This concludes the foundational knowledge of how and what we are going to process within the Onfinity system. Now, let's proceed to the system demonstration to explore how this process can be performed step by step. To begin, open the Onfinity link in your browser. Log in using your user ID and password. Enter your valid user ID. Enter your password, and then click on Login to access the system. Once you log into the system, you will see all the available widgets referred to as mosaics on the Onfinity homepage. You can customize your mosaics according to your preferences. These mosaics provide real-time data insights that can be used for monitoring and analysis purposes. To customize your homepage, navigate to the Mosaic section. From here, you can remove any existing mosaics currently displayed on the homepage. You can also add or rearrange mosaics by selecting from the list of available options, allowing you to personalize the homepage based on your preferences or frequently used functions. For now, let's close the Mosaic section and begin the step-by-step walkthrough. As per our use case, we'll initiate the process by creating a requisition. You can search for Requisition directly in the menu, or navigate to the Procurement Management section. Under Procurement Management, you'll find a module for Requisition. Simply click on Requisition to proceed. By default, The requisition landing page displays pre-configured widgets designed to support quick analysis and efficient filtering of records. You can apply various filters such as advanced search, warehouse, document type, document status, preparer, and requester to narrow down the list of available requisitions. In addition, 3 key KPIs are available to help analyze open requisitions, whether they are intended for purchase orders, material transfers, or inventory use. You can also monitor requisitions that are awaiting approval through the Pending Requisitions by Approver widget. Further insights are provided through monthly and quarterly requisition trends, including a comparison with the previous year, allowing better visibility into purchasing patterns. At the bottom of the page, you'll find a summary highlighting product categories with the highest usage value. You can also access additional mosaics available for the requisition screen under the Mosaic section. Click on the Mosaic section to open it. These mosaics provide extended analytical views for monitoring and managing requisition records. You can select any available option and use it on the requisition screen as per your specific needs. But for now, we will proceed with the default mosaics. Close the Mosaic section. To initiate a new requisition, simply click on the New Record Mosaic option. This will open the screen in Single Record View, where you can begin entering the required details to create a new requisition. The requisition screen is primarily used to add records that raise internal requests for items that need to be procured within the organization. It serves as a formal request initiated within the organization to begin the procurement process. First, select the organization under which you are initiating the requisition transaction. Next, choose the appropriate document type that reflects the nature of your transaction. In our case, since we are initiating a procurement request, we will proceed with Purchase Requisition as the document type. If you need further clarity on the material requisition document type used specifically to differentiate process flows, you may refer to the dedicated video on inventory use against requisition, which is covered under the Material Management training. Your document date indicates the date on which the requisition is being created. Next, you can specify the requester, the individual who is raising this requirement. This field pulls from the employee master, so only users listed there will appear. However, since it's not a mandatory field and this request is not person-specific, we can leave it blank for now. After that, you can set the priority level for the requisition based on urgency. Then, enter the date required, which defines the expected fulfillment date for this requisition, essentially, the date by which the items are needed. For this example, let's assume the required date is 30th of June 2025. Now, select the source warehouse. This field typically refers to a central warehouse within the organization that fulfills the demand of other requesting warehouses, commonly used in internal material transfer scenarios. However, since we are creating a purchase requisition intended for procurement, the source warehouse will be the same as the requester warehouse. The requester warehouse represents the location where the products are needed. This is auto-populated based on the default warehouse set for the organization. In cases where a material transfer is being initiated from another sourcing location, you can manually select a different source warehouse here. Next, select the price list that will be applicable to this requisition. This determines the base pricing for the items being requested. After selecting the price list, save the header to proceed further. We've already discussed the process buttons available on this screen in our earlier sessions, such as Create lines from requisition, to copy lines from an existing requisition. Create lines from cart, useful if you're leveraging the cart functionality for bulk or repetitive entries. Now, let's click on the Lines tab button to manually create line items for this requisition. Click on New Record. This will open the line tab in Single Record View. In the Product field, select Dell Laptop, and then choose the appropriate attribute set based on the configuration. We are estimating a requirement of 6,000 laptops. which translates to an overall demand of approximately 1,000 laptops per month. After entering the details and saving the line, click on New Record again to add the next product to the requisition. Next, we'll add the second product, which is the LG monitor. Enter the product in the field and specify the required quantity as 6,000 units. Once done, click Save to save the line record. Click on New Record again to proceed with the next item. For accessories, select the Logitech keyboard as the product. We require 6,000 units for the keyboard as well. Since no attribute set instance is available for this product, we will leave that field blank. Click New Record again and select Mouse and Other Accessory item. Enter the quantity as 6,000 units, and then save the record after completing the entry. After the required items line saved, now navigate back to the Header tab to proceed with completing the requisition. Click on the Document Action button available within the Header panel. Upon clicking the Document Action button, a confirmation message will appear. Confirm the action to complete the record. This will update the document status from drafted to completed, and the record will become read-only. Once you've completed the requisition record, you're ready to move forward with the Blanket Purchase Order (BPO) screen. To access it, you can either search Blanket Purchase Order using the menu utility, or navigate to the Purchase module under Procurement Management, where you'll find the Blanket Purchase Order option. Upon opening the screen, you'll land on the BPO landing page. A Blanket Purchase Order (BPO) is a long-term procurement agreement between an organization and a supplier, which defines pre-approved pricing and terms for goods or services to be delivered periodically over a specified time frame. To create a new blanket purchase order, you can click on New Record directly from the Mosaic panel, or navigate to the screen view and click on New Record from there. Currently, there are no records in the system, so the filter mosaics appear empty. Once records are added, these mosaics will populate accordingly and allow you to filter based on warehouse, vendor, or document status. Click on the Screen Record view to switch from the landing page to the detailed screen layout. Once in the Screen Record view, click on the New Record button to begin the creation process. This action will open the Blanket Purchase Order screen in Single Record view, where you can begin entering the necessary details. Start by selecting the organization under which this blanket purchase order is being created. This ensures the document is recorded under the correct business entity. Next, you'll need to define the target document type, which helps categorize this transaction and distinguish it from other purchasing processes. For example, it indicates that this is a blanket purchase order rather than a standard PO or other procurement type. After that, enter the order date, which represents the date on which this BPO record is being created. Now move to the Order Valid From field. This marks the start date from which both parties agree that the blanket purchase order is effective. Let's assume the order is initiated on June 26, 2025, so we'll enter that as the Order Valid From date. Then set the order valid to date. This defines the end of the validity period for the agreement. For our case, let's consider a 6-month duration, so the validity will end on December 25th, 2025. Next, we have the Control Type field, which plays a crucial role in defining how strictly the Blanket Purchase Order, BPO, governs future transactions. In Onfinity, you can choose from the following 3 control types. 1. Price and quantity. This is the most commonly used and recommended option for blanket purchase orders. When this control type is selected, users will not be able to modify either the price or the quantity during the release order process. This ensures complete adherence to the agreed terms of the blanket agreement, helping maintain consistency and control over procurement activities. 2. Price only. This option restricts users from changing the price during the release order, but allows them to adjust the quantity if required. It is useful in cases where product demand may vary and more quantity might be needed than originally planned, but the price must remain fixed as per the agreement. 3. Quantity only. When selected, Users cannot exceed the specified quantity and the BPO, but they have the flexibility to update the price at the time of the release. This may be relevant in dynamic pricing scenarios where cost changes are expected, but quantity usage must stay within limits. However, for most standard blanket purchase orders, it's best practice to restrict both price and quantity to ensure consistency and control over procurement. So, for our use case, we will proceed with price and quantity as the selected control type. This ensures that users must strictly follow the agreed terms when releasing orders under this blanket purchase order. Next, we need to select the vendor. Let's go ahead and choose the appropriate vendor for this blanket purchase order. But before processed further, there's an important point to remember. To ensure that a vendor appears in the selection list for blanket purchase orders, a specific configuration must be completed in the vendor master. There is a check button labeled Allow Blanket PO available on the vendor master screen. This must be marked as true. If this isn't checked, the vendor simply won't appear here during the selection. So before proceeding, make sure that the required vendor is properly configured to support blanket purchase orders. Now let's quickly check the configuration that allows this vendor to be selected for a blanket purchase order. To do that, zoom the vendor record directly from the vendor field. Once the vendor master screen opens, click on the vendor name hyperlink to view the record in single record view. Now, navigate to the Additional Conditions tab. Here, you'll find the check button, Allow Blanket PO. As you can see, it's already marked as true, and that's why this vendor was available for selection in the blanket purchase order screen. If you want to understand vendor creation in more detail, you can refer to the Vendor Master Creation training session. Now, let's move back to the blanket purchase order screen. Based on the configurations given on the Vendor Master, several fields will automatically populate, including Invoice to Business Partner, Invoice Location, Bill to Location, Vendor Contact, and Invoice Contact. Next, you can set the priority of this blanket order. There's also a description field available, in case you want to add any internal notes or instructions related to this order. Now, we need to select the warehouse. This determines where the goods will be received once the order is released. Just like with the vendor, the selected warehouse must be pre-configured to allow blanket purchase orders. There's a specific check button on the warehouse master. Allow Blanket Order must be marked as true. Let's zoom into the warehouse record to check this setting. Once the warehouse record is open, click on the hyperlink to view the record in single record view. Here, you'll see that we have already marked the Allow Blanket Order as true. That's the reason why this particular warehouse is available for selection. On our blanket purchase order screen, let's move back to the blanket purchase order. Now you will notice that the price list, payment terms, and payment method fields are also auto-populated from the selected vendor. Although these default values are pre-filled based on the vendor's configuration, you can update them if required. The representative field is derived from the current login credentials, indicating the individual responsible for this order. Additionally, the Incoterm field is applicable in scenarios involving international trade, where specific delivery terms must be defined. For the purpose of this demonstration, we are not using Incoterms, so we will leave that field blank. Now, let's go ahead and save the header to proceed further. Here we can directly add the lines of items into the composite view, or we can move to the Line tab by clicking on the Line tab button to add lines manually. But for now, since we are using the requisition to create our blanket purchase order, we will not add it manually. We will come to this order tax button later, as it will be updated only once we add the lines into the blanket purchase order. The Copy from Another Blanket button is used to copy the line from the existing record of a blanket order. We just need to click on this, and then after confirmation, we will be able to see the form where we need to enter the document number of the existing record of the blanket. Once we enter the document number and click OK, the lines will get inserted from the existing record. However, as we currently do not have any available record of a blanket purchase order, we will skip this for now. To create lines from the requisition, we simply need to click on the Create Lines from Requisition button. By clicking on it, The Create Lines from Requisition form will appear. Here, click on the Requisition field to open the Requisition selection window. Select the requisition we previously created and confirm by clicking OK. After that, you will be able to see all the products associated with that particular requisition in the form. You can modify the entered quantities if needed, or skip any product by deselecting it. You also have the option to select a single product. But for now, we are proceeding with all the products, so we will click OK, and the lines will be inserted successfully. You can verify the lines either in the composite view, or navigate to the Line tab by clicking on the Line tab button. Click on the line number hyperlink to open the record in single record view, where we can review all the available product line details more thoroughly. If any adjustments to pricing are needed, they can be made here, as the price is initially derived from the price list. If there is any change in the prices, users are allowed to update it directly in Price field. In the Quantity and Amount section, you'll find the ordered quantity, which is calculated based on the base unit of measure conversion. After releasing a portion of this quantity through the creation of a purchase order, the released quantity field will reflect the updated values. Subsequently, once the goods are received into the warehouse and a goods receipt note, GRN, is created, the quantity delivered will also be updated accordingly, indicating how much of the ordered quantity has been physically received. Now, let's move to the Header tab of the screen. From there, click on the Document Action button available in the Header panel. Select the option to complete the record and confirm by clicking OK. Once the blanket purchase order is completed, you will notice that the Release Purchase Order button becomes enabled. Before moving forward, let's take a moment to check the Order Tax. Click on Order Tax button to open the Order Tax Screen tab. This screen reflects the tax calculated based on the tax settings applied at the line level. It will display the tax amount, the taxable amount, and indicate whether the prices include tax or exclude it, all of which can be easily analyzed from this view. Let's now close the order tax. To create a release purchase order, click on the Release Purchase Order button. You'll be prompted with a confirmation. Simply click OK to proceed. Once confirmed, the release purchase order is successfully created, and a message will appear at the bottom of the blanket purchase order screen confirming this. You will also see the generated order number displayed at the bottom. Next, navigate to the purchase order screen to continue with the rest of the process, where you'll find the record of this newly created release purchase order available for further action. Go to the Purchase Order module under the Procurement Management section. Here, open the purchase order screen, which is typically used to record and manage the purchase orders, along with all the details of the items to be procured from the vendor. All relevant order details will be accessible on this screen. Once the purchase order screen is opened, the landing page will display default widgets, referred to as mosaics, that provide useful insights and quick access to various purchase order functionalities. We've already covered the various mosaics available on this screen in previous sessions, so for now, we won't go into further detail, since we already know that these mosaics are primarily used for filtering records, viewing charts, and performing analytical tasks. If you recall from our last session, one of the orders that previously appeared under the Expected Orders mosaic, because its promise date was in the future, has now moved into the Due Orders mosaic, as its promise date has passed. For now, let's view the record using the View Records mosaic option. Click on the document number hyperlink to view the record in Single Record View, where more detailed information about the record can be accessed. To search for our specific record, simply enter the order number 72,000 in the Search Records field and press Enter. In this way, you are able to open the purchase order that was created with the target document type set as Release Purchase Order, which you can also spot here in the record details. Also, you will be able to see an additional field blanket order, which gets enabled once the record is created from a blanket purchase order. This field displays the reference to the blanket order against which this particular release order has been generated. Your order date reflects the date on which the document was created, and the promise date indicates the expected delivery date for receiving the items from the vendor. This field can be updated here as needed for now. Let's update it to 30/06/2025. The vendor and all related details, such as vendor location, invoice partner, payment terms, and price list, are directly fetched from the blanket purchase order. You don't need to re-enter them manually here. In the composite view, you can also see the product details. Since this is the receipt for the first month's installment, you just need to adjust the quantity accordingly in the line item. So for each product, enter the quantity you want to receive for this installment, let's say 1,000 units, and then click Save. Repeat this for each line item. Enter 1,000, save. Enter 1,000, save, and again 1,000, save. Now, if you want to receive the next month's quantity, simply go back to the blanket purchase order screen, click on the Release Purchase Order button, and your new purchase order will be created. In each case, you only need to enter the quantity you're going to receive that month. This is a standard approach for blanket order processes, where estimated quantities are defined up front and the actual quantities are specified in the purchase order per installment. After saving the line, let's move to the Line tab by clicking on the Lines tab button. Now, click on the line number hyperlink to open the record in single record view, where you can access and review the details of that specific product line. As we've selected the control type as price and quantity, let's try changing the price to test the restriction. We'll update the price to 70,000 and attempt to save the record. As expected, an error appears. Price can't be changed, because the system is enforcing the control settings defined in the blanket purchase order. This clearly shows how the control type functionality works in practice. Now, let's undo the changes, return to the header, and proceed to complete the record. Click Complete within the header panel of Purchase to finalize the record and proceed with the next steps in the process. Confirm the completion by clicking OK on the confirmation prompt. Once the purchase order is completed, the order status is updated to Open, and the document status becomes completed within the header panel. At this stage, the completed purchase order is typically shared with the vendor. When the items are received, the next step is to proceed with the Goods Receipt Note, or GRN, to update the stock in the warehouse. To do this, open the Menu utility, where you can search for the Goods Receipt Note screen directly. Alternatively, navigate to the Material Management module. Under Storage Operations, you'll find the Goods Receipt Note screen. Click on it, and the system will take you to the GRN landing page, where you can view records using the available filter mosaics. You can also analyze data records and trends from the available charts on the Goods Receipt Note landing page. To create a GRN quickly, you can use the Expected GRN mosaic. Just click on the order number, then select the product lines, and click on Generate GRN. Based on the information available in the purchase order, your GRN will be automatically created from the mosaic. Alternatively, you can also create the GRN manually. To do this, click on New Record. Then, select the organization, document type, and set the movement date to reflect the actual date on which the items were received from the vendor. Next, select the warehouse where the received items are to be stored. After that, choose the vendor from whom the goods are being received, which will autofill associated fields like vendor location and vendor contact. After saving the header tab, the next step is to click on the Create Lines From button. From here, select the specific purchase order you want to reference. Based on the selected purchase order and its product lines, the line items will be inserted automatically into your GRN. Once the lines are inserted, simply complete the record to confirm that the quantities have been received into the warehouse. Finally, you can post the GRN to ensure that the correct accounting ledger entries are created and reflected in the system. Once the items are received and the Goods Receipt Note, GRN, is available, the next step involves the finance team. A finance team member, if granted access to the GRN screen, can directly generate the AP invoice by clicking on the Generate Invoice button. After clicking, a confirmation message will appear. Simply click OK to proceed. Then, enter the reference number of the invoice received from the vendor for this specific purchase order. Let's say the vendor has provided the invoice with reference number AP100209. Enter this number in the invoice reference field. Next, select the appropriate document type in this case. We'll choose AP invoice. Click OK to proceed. Once the process is completed, the system will generate the invoice, and the invoice number will be displayed at the bottom of the screen. You can now copy the AP invoice number for further processing or tracking. Now let's open the AP invoice screen. You can either search for it directly using the menu search utility or navigate through the financial management section. Under the Accounts Payable module, you will find the AP invoice screen. Clicking on AP invoice will take you to the AP invoice landing page, where you'll see various mosaics. These mosaics act as visual filters, displaying real-time data related to vendor invoices. You can view the created AP invoice from the View Records mosaic on the AP invoice screen. Locate the invoice you recently created in the list, and then click on the invoice number hyperlink. This will open the invoice in single record view, allowing you to see all the associated details for review and further processing. All the related information gets automatically populated from the Generate Invoice process that we executed from the Goods Receipt Note (GRN) screen. However, if you need to make any updates or adjustments, you can certainly do so before proceeding. You can also add a new AP invoice manually by clicking the New Record button. Please note, since we're currently in view mode, the New Record option is disabled. To enable it, simply refresh the screen, and the option will become active. Once enabled, you can proceed by entering the necessary details, such as organization, target document type, and other relevant fields. If you'd like to explore the AP invoice creation in more depth, please refer to the dedicated session on AP invoice creation under the Financial Management module. Now, let's go ahead and complete the record. After the completion of the AP invoice record, the next important step is to post the invoice. To do this, simply click on the Not Posted button. Once posted, the accounting ledger entries will be automatically generated and updated in the system, reflecting the financial impact of the transaction. And that concludes the end-to-end process flow, starting from requisition to blanket purchase order, followed by the purchase order, goods receipt note, GRN, and finally, the AP invoice. Thank you for your attention and engagement throughout this session. With a clear understanding of the requisition to blanket purchase order process, you are now equipped to confidently apply these insights within your procurement workflows using Onfinity.